potential clients are, they can help you connect with them. Visit classycommunications.net to learn more about their suite of services that can help your business stand out from the rest. Classy Communications is your solution for business success.
Well, hello there. Here I am. We have the power, and we are continuing with the second part of a series I started. What would I do if I was the governor? Now, this is We Have the Power. My name is Brian Gardner. We are live every Thursday at 5 p.m. If you are a guest that would like to be on the program, please contact me, bgardner2323@yahoo.com, or via the PR Connections radio network site. And we're going to be going over a couple of things today in this segment. We're going to talk about what to do with our prisoners if I was governor. And we'll start talking about our most valuable resource, students. So let's start first with prisoners. Now, every state has its prisoners, and you have to figure out what to do with them. And the key thing here is that when someone is psychotic and can't be in society, certainly jails play their role in keeping society safe from these kinds of individuals. But if someone, held up a 7-Eleven or did something else where they're not psychotic, they're just a criminal, a lot of times what happens is the criminals get to sit in the jail, they get their teeth fixed, they get free food, free rent, they even get to exercise in many cases. And that's not fair to the people that they disrupted with either killing a family member, driving drunk, stealing money from a business that now has to close down because the criminal certainly spent the money, doesn't have it to give back. So the first thing that I would do as the governor is make an edict that if you are jailed for any reason, that you're going to be working long, hard hours to pay for your rent, pay for your health care, pay for all of your food. The only thing that the taxpayer should be on the hook for is the maintenance of the jails and the payments toward the staff, their salaries, and repair of the jail as needed. It isn't fair for someone to, kill somebody drunk driving or murder somebody, and then they just sit in jail and we have to pick up the tab for all these costs that they incur. That's not fair to the taxpayer. And so the word would go out to people who are kind of deciding, should I commit this crime or not? That they will be working long hours to pay for their rent, their food, their health care. They're not going to have the life of luxury and just sitting around learning how to be a better criminal in jail. And that would be a good thing for people who are not in jail to know that's what they're facing if they commit a crime. So that is something very important that we are going to do. Now, the reason that I, as a governor, would not be in support of the death penalty is that I believe in reincarnation. Many people in this world, millions of people do. I don't think it's 100% responsible if we kill somebody. We're sending our problems into the future because I believe in reincarnation. They're going to be born into a new body with the same things going on that caused them to be a criminal in our time. They're going to be a criminal in a future time, and we should try to rehabilitate them while we know where they are. Because the minute we kill their body, we have lost knowledge of where they are. Now, people might say, well, you can't really rehabilitate someone, but the International Criminon Program has proven this to be false. You can rehabilitate people. One should look at their programs and their many successes at www.criminon.org. Now, people are working hard, a couple of jobs, trying to make ends meet, keep their kids from getting into drugs and crime. And are the people that are in jail the priority? No, we talk about rehabilitating them because we're trying to be responsible for who we have and who we know where they are, who've committed crimes in our time. But they are not the number one priority. That's why they have to work hard to pay for all the things in the jail, because it wouldn't be fair, again, for the people who are struggling to even get their teeth fixed, to pay their bills, that a criminal gets all this just paid free, and I understand somebody say, well, they are locked up. That's true, but they should not be getting this stuff free. So that is something else that would be implemented and be a strong message going out to young people. And I think that criminals who aren't psychotic, who've been rehabilitated to some degree, should be sent into our schools so that they can talk to young people about, hey, this is what's going to happen if you commit a crime, why it isn't right to commit a crime, and a lot of things such as that, which would be helpful for our young people. Now, of course, the people who are against this are people that want society to be in here, like this, in turmoil. They want it to be in turmoil because in those situations, we are so preoccupied with crime in our streets and crime everywhere and all this stuff that we never have the time to take a look and see what criminal things they're doing in Washington and elsewhere. They want us like this with blinders on. That's how they keep doing the crime they're doing without getting caught. They don't want people to have the pressure off. The pressure's off. We might start going, hey, the pressure's off, paying my bills. What's going on in Washington? They do not want that. They want to work in the shadows and the back rooms and continue to do things that benefit them and not the mass of populations. So that's what we should do with criminals. Make sure people understand that criminal activity is not correct, and that should be taught in schools. And we're going to talk about students here in a second. We certainly get psychiatry out of the way with their barbaric practices, and we'll see a drop in crime anyway. A lot of the crimes that are perpetrated are people that are so messed up by psychiatric drugs. And it used to be, lobotomies, electroshock, they have created a lot of zombies that just can't function in society anymore. So we need to get a handle on psychiatry, which I talked in the last episode. We would do a white paper, top to bottom review of psychiatric methods and pretty much get psychiatry banned. The only thing that would be left was talking to someone. That's what psychiatry used to do until the pharmaceutical companies and the psychs got together, and the evil people said, yeah, let's drug as many of the brightest ones as we can, because the brightest ones could find out what we're doing and give us trouble. So, students, let's go over this. That is our finest natural resource. Students, finest natural resource, and we're not doing very good with them. I just read in the paper, I take the Sunday paper because it has a lot of good information in there. And it's affordable to have just the Sunday paper coming. Nice to relax a little bit and look at the paper on Sunday morning. But I find a lot of good information in there. The scores of students in Nevada and the country are just horrible. Students, not knowing math, not knowing how to read. They try all these goofy things years ago, ebonics and all this, when phonics is the 007 code for decoding a word. Take a word like boat. The things that float on the water, right? If you don't know the sounds of those letters, B-O-A-T, you're going to have a hard time decoding that word. B-O-A-T. That's because people of my age grew up on phonics. We know what the sounds of the letters from A to Z are. That needs to be taught, not dropped. And the other thing that needs to be implemented, which I would do in this state, is using Applied Scholastics International study technology. And there's 3 barriers to study that they have discovered stop students from learning. One of them is too steep a gradient. Somebody's studying here and you force them or you jump them up here. And well, what about all this stuff in between that they didn't get? Another thing is a lack of mass. Someone's studying about a tractor. Either get a model tractor, like this is a Volkswagen, but get a model tractor, or take them on a field trip, let them touch and look and see a tractor. somehow get the mass. If a student studies with no mass, the actual thing they're studying, it's very hard on the student. And the most important one is misunderstood words. So that has to be something that the teachers are taught. And applied scholastics study technology is being taught the world over. Guess who tries to stop it continually? Evil people that do not want people to be smart. Smart people are hard to control. Smart people know about the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, what their rights are. That is very difficult and dangerous for a person wanting to do criminal acts in Washington and elsewhere. So they try to stop it all the time. It needs to be implemented in every state in this country. And if I was governor, we'd start with wherever I was governor, implement across the boards, and you would see immediately students comprehending, understanding they're studying for use. They are not studying so I can go 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Well, what good does that do you? You can be like a parrot and produce the answer continually, but do you understand anything about what you just said? Study is for use, okay? Now, with applied scholastics, they have shown that when a student in their reading or studying has gone by many misunderstood words, they will exhibit behaviors that are very much like what the psychiatrists say, oh, he needs drugs for that. You clear up the misunderstood words, and guess what? The attitude and that stuff vanishes. It's amazing. And the reason that is that when people read something and they have a misunderstood word, it kind of makes them wrong. They feel like I'm dumb because I didn't learn it. So I hate this subject. A lot of people who have quit subjects they thought they loved, if you went in and cleaned up the misunderstood words they had in that subject, their interest in that subject would suddenly come alive. And they, you read, it's got a lot of words I don't understand. I want to distance myself from that subject. I thought I would like it. I don't like it anymore. It's just the misunderstood words, which of course teachers, most of them in our public schools, know nothing about. The other thing that's so important is the way applied scholastics does what they do with students. It's brilliant. You're on a check sheet. Everybody in the classroom's on a check sheet so that everybody doesn't have to work at the same pace. Some people are slower. Some people are faster. So you start the day out. The teacher would have a check sheet for what they're going to study today. Maybe she gives a lecture on a particular aspect, but let's say she's done with the lecture for today's study. Then she would go around, her and an aide would go around to each student and say, what is your target today? Oh, I'm going to reach number 12. Okay, that's your target. Okay. And every student would have a different target based on their ability to comprehend and where they're at, so that you don't push them higher in their material than they've grasped these lower levels first. Once the students are on a check sheet, then the teacher is freed up to work with anybody who's having trouble as it gets toward the end of the period or the day or whatever time they have to reach their target, who's not reaching their target. In the classroom, you would have a word clear. If the person's in trouble, you send them to the word clear. Okay, let's look at your last 2 pages that you read. Let me ask you some questions about the words on these last 2 pages. And you would find those misunderstood words, get them cleared up in a proper dictionary. There's a technology for clearing a word properly. Send the student back. Now they're moving again. And then the teacher could once again go around, and then the student would feel really good. I made my target. But the student next to him or her would not feel like they're dumb because they weren't at number 14. They were at number 6. That was their target. And if they made number 6, they feel like, wow, I made my target. It doesn't mean that everybody in the class has to reach number 12. That's just going to give some of the kids a loss who are working a little slower. You set a target they feel they can reach that day or that hour. Wonderful way to run a classroom. And manners would be in place. No cell phones anywhere near the classroom. If parents need to get in touch because there's an emergency, they can go through the office. The teacher can be contacted. Johnny has to go to the office. There's an emergency. Okay. You don't have to have the cell phones in the classroom. Now, the other thing, especially with high school students, they already have a lot of hormones racing around, So I'm not saying there has to be some draconian dress code, but high school women students who come to school and they're dressed provocatively are just going to distract the guys. So that would not be allowed. Now, you might say, well, it's hard to say what is provocative, what isn't. Come on. We all know what is proper dress to be in the course room and not distract other students, okay? And the guy is the same thing, But mainly it's women that can distract other male students by the way they dress. So that would have to be monitored. Parents would know about it, so the kids would not come, the girls would not come with cleavage showing what and too short of pants showing way too much, distracting the students. Now, I will go into a third part on this because there's a lot to cover on students, but there are some things that I want to say on today's segment. The reason our schools are in trouble, and I've repeated this again and again, but it's such an important point. It's a turning point in when we started to destroy our finest natural resource. In the 60s, young people were not too much into drugs, and they were being told, you're going to Southeast Asia to fight a war. And the students said, no, I'm not. And I'm going to look into why you're having a war there. And all this lies and all this money making for Bell Helicopter and Dow Chemical came out. And the reason for the war was not to help anybody, but to make money. They had to kill a sitting president, John F. Kennedy, because he was going to start pulling troops out of Vietnam. They were going to lose billions of dollars. They wanted that war to go on for year after year after year. Who cares if it kills a bunch of Asians? They're not even valuable people anyway. This is the despicable viewpoint of these psychotic people who started and made this war happen. The Gulf of Tonkin incident was supposed to be the reason we got into the war, and it came out recently completely faked. That was a completely faked incident just to get us into the war. So this ties in with students from this main point. Young people were not on drugs. They were very bright-eyed. They had some time to go to college and go, wait a minute, let me think about this. Going to Southeast Asia to fight a war. And they found out all the lies that were going on about the war. And they had teach-ins and protests all over the country and the world. There was a march on Washington to stop the war in Vietnam, which had 500,000 people. And finally, Middle America heard it, and they said, hey, we don't want to fund this war anymore. Now, the powers that be got rid of Kennedy, got rid of Martin Luther King, who was going to speak out about blacks not going to that war, got rid of Robert Kennedy, who would probably have opened up who killed Kennedy and would have been against that war as well. And they were really pissed at the youth. They said, do not, in their back room, smoking room, don't ever let young people have freedom of thought. Keep the pressure on them. We never want them ever again. Look what they did to us. They cost us billions. Those freaky long-haired hippies. Forget it. Wreck the schools. Make it, dumb it down, in fact. So that's where we are today with our schools not getting students to speak properly, read properly. And they can't speak either, get them hooked on phones, get them hooked on drugs. Marijuana's okay. It grows in the ground, bunch of crap. The marijuana today is so much more powerful than in my day in the 60s. Get people all kinds of false information about this country, about right and wrong, and get them preoccupied over here while the creeps are doing their crimes over here. Hoping young people will not be bright enough, not be smart enough to be able to catch them. And certainly if they're smoking pot believing it's okay to be a criminal because, after all, the corporations are ripping us off, so we can rip them off. And on psych medication, most of the brightest ones are going to be non-functional, which is exactly what the evil people want, because they don't want to get caught with their hand in the cookie jar. And if you put a blindfold on you and tied your hands behind your back, ties you to a chair, I doubt you would know when I have my hand in the cookie jar or not. This is the basic premise. So we're going to talk more about what needs to happen to our students, what we need to teach them. And there'll be all kinds of resistance to it, because once again, we're going to be raising the educational level of young people. And that scares the dickens out of evil people. That's when they get caught. That's when they get caught. When you have a bright, non-druggy, non-alcohol abusing, non-focused on pornography and 24/7 holding your phone, and you can't even hold a conversation with a live person. That all is a breakdown of society and not letting them know how to read. They don't want to teach them about the Constitution, our Bill of Rights, any of it. Now, imagine if the sheep said, hey, I ain't going in there. You're going to slaughter me. I'm not going in there, man. You know, this sheep teacher told me, do not go down that path. Imagine how hard it would be to have the kind of food we need to feed the world if these animals were sentient. I ain't going down that ramp. Well, that's kind of the same thing with our young people. They want them like sheep. They want them dumb. They want them preoccupied with everything but finding out what the evil people are doing and what they have done. And we're going to cover more in number 3, what would I do if I was a governor, next Thursday, 5 p.m., talking about what students should have to be able to know before they're allowed to graduate, what they're required to do, what we're required to teach them, because we want them in the best possible shape. They are the future of this country. That's why they're the best natural resource we have. Because if they're bright, if they know to stay away from drugs, if they know to stay away from crime, if they can read, if they can figure things out, they can question, they know how to communicate, they know manners, they know all this stuff that I'm going to cover in the next segment, they will be so formidable that any foreign country or any evil people will not be able to pull the wool over their eyes. And that's what the evil people are afraid of. That's why they've destroyed the U.S. school system. Thank you, President Trump, for closing down the National Education Department. It was nothing but a brainwashing organization controlled by evil people covertly to make sure that our students were dumb, uninformed, and were easy to control. Next Thursday at 5 p.m., we are going to be going over from my book, Plan for America and the World, the chapter on students, and the list that I have come up with of things that students should know, should be able to do before they graduate. And it's formidable, but it's what we need to make an individual competent member of society. Please be here and share this video with anyone who cares about the future of this country. Thank you for watching. This has been We Have the Power. I'm your host, Brian Gardner.
Voting is more than just a right, it's a powerful tool for change. Every vote counts and every voice matters. Voting protects your rights and helps to build a better future. And it's a way to hold our leaders accountable. Voting isn't just about the big elections either. Local elections impact our daily lives. It is important to study the candidates and the issues in order to make an informed decision. Don't sit it out. Your vote is your power. PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.